These guys call the Emperor the Void Father. That's fucking baller. Alright, okay, bye. So originally when one of the homies threw out these guys as a suggestion, I kind of thought I was going to be able to turn this one into a short and throw it together real quick, and holy shit was I wrong. So follow me as we take a poorly planned and executed dive into the Carcharodons, aka the Shark Boys. The homeworld and origins of this chapter have been lost to Imperial records and subsequently have become shrouded in myth and mystery. Even their exact founding is unknown. Many in the Imperium think that they're a relatively new chapter, only coming into existence around the 23rd founding. However, the Carcharodons' own records and some sealed away inquisitorial records date them back to over 10,000 years, which would put them at around the 2nd or 3rd founding chapter. As stated, the chapter has no official homeworld, so they remain a fleet-based chapter. Now, apparently they're a Raven Guard successor chapter, however there are no official records to support this, so their original gene sire can't be determined with any 100% accuracy. The mysteries of their origins aside, their mission was crystal clear. The Space Sharks were ordered by the Inquisition to roam the vast darkness of space on an unending pilgrimage of slaughter against the renegade, the alien, and the traitor. A task which the Shark Boys carry out with what can only be described as a bestial but calculated savagery. I think this savagery could be caused by the rampant insomnia that plagues the Carcharodons. Since they are mainly a void-faring chapter, members of the Carcharodons would often spend long periods within cryopods. Newer members of the chapter find these pods help them to cope with their new genetic augments. However, the longer a Void Brother remains in service, the harder the sleep becomes. In most cases, it regresses to the point that the Carcharodon will simply roam about the ship while it's in void transit. Now, unfortunately for our boys, insomnia is not the only defect they have to worry about. Their other defect is perhaps a genetic one, or it's perhaps just brought about by the constant deep space travel. It's known as the chill of the void. It acts almost like a disease, slowly progressing through distinct phases. Phase 1 is known as coldly familiar. In this stage, the already antisocial furry will become even more distant than normal. Stage 2 is known as merciless. Here the Carcharodon has zero tolerance for any traitor or Xenos and shows absolutely no mercy to any opponent, even if the person surrenders or was a high value target that they were sent to capture in the first place. At this stage, even their closest Void Brothers have difficulty returning them to their senses. Stage 3 is called Silent as the Depths. This is where the Void Brother has retreated almost entirely into himself. They refuse to lead any squads and undertake missions almost exclusively alone. While these conditions can certainly take their toll on individual Void Brothers, it certainly hasn't degraded the chapter's combat performance. The Carcharodons have fought, or allegedly fought, in many campaigns, such as the Solar Rebellion, where even the Inquisition has no idea who the fuck fought in that one. But it is alleged that the Shark Boys were present at the time, though other Imperial deployment records contradict this, but we're still gonna count it. There was also the Astropathic Wars, which I shit you not, this is the official statement on how that one went. The details of this conflict remain unknown, but it can be assumed from the name that Astropaths were somehow involved. Fucking wow, riveting. Truly groundbreaking thinking on that one. They are, however, 100% confirmed to have taken part within the War of the False Primarch, a super dope event in which a lot of really cool shit happened, and I'd love to take a 20-minute side tangent to go into painstaking detail on this war, but there is zero information about it. It gets referenced all the time. There are many things that happen as a direct result of this event, yet we don't actually know what the fuck happened. But somehow, 5 Space Marine chapters systematically annihilated 11 Space Marine chapters. Since our Shark Boys were 100% involved in this one, they must be some seriously bad motherfuckers, because how in the fuck does 5 chapters beat 11 and nobody has any details on this? This is beyond a tease, and I demand more lore on this subject. Moving on. During the 7th Black Crusade, it's believed that these guys saved a detachment of Blood Angels from Abby Dabby himself and some Khorne Berserkers, though that's another one that isn't exactly confirmed, just heavily implied. During the Angevin Crusade, a rogue trader found himself in some seriously hot water with some of the evil space elves, and the pirates knocked his ship out of orbit, sending it crashing to the planet below. While many of the crew survived the crash, they found themselves set upon by the Drukhari and were quickly encircled. As the battle raged on and all hope seemed lost, a dozen Terminators suddenly teleported into the ship. They were clad in a dull gray armor and set upon the Drukhari in complete and utter silence. All that could be heard was the rending of flesh and the agonizing screams of the Drukhari. The elves fled from the ship and the Carcharodons initiated an incredibly precise bombardment that completely shattered the Drukhari's morale, sending them sprinting back to the webway. After the assault, the Space Marine commander went up to the rogue trader and was like, "Hey, since we saved you, can we get some supplies?" Now, the rogue trader was about to say no, but then he realized that these guys were more than willing to just kill him and take it. So he allows them to take whatever they wanted, but when he asks them who they were, they simply reply that they're part of the Angevin Crusade and that reinforcements would arrive soon. Then, 3 days before the Crusaders show up, the Marines just up and dip out. Now, the Inquisition is a little curious as to what the fuck happened and how this rogue trader's ship crashed, so they bring him in for questioning. And after questioning him, they came to the same conclusion I did. Solid black eyes, fought in total silence, robbed the people they just saved, fled before the authorities arrived, had to be the baby sharks. There were several other notable engagements of the Shark Boys, but their most recent confirmed exploit occurred during the Indomitus Crusade. A warband of word-bearers had captured this Imperial citadel, and they're standing there gloating about their victory, and they're about to summon some big fuck-all demon, right? Then, the Shark Boys just casually drop out of the warp and look at their Imperial commander. They're like, "Hey, you're gonna kill that?" And the commander, who is completely shocked that these guys just popped out of the warp, is like, "I mean, we've been trying to." And the baby sharks is like, "Mind if I take this one?" And the Imperial commander's like, please? Then the baby sharks casually teleport to the surface, completely eradicate the traitors, and teleport back to the ship, all in the span of about 5 minutes. The Imperial commander was like, "Yo, where the fuck were y'all before all my men died?" And the Shark Boys were like, "Oh, we were watching from the warp, thought it was fucking hilarious. Hey, by the way, got any stuff?" They then proceeded to rob the Imperials and fled before the authorities could arrive. Now, the armaments of the chapter are just as mysterious as everything else about these incredibly violent furries. They have ships and armor dating as far back to the Heresy, and they also have ships and armor dating all the way to like fresh off the assembly line. While having a vast array of weapons at your disposal isn't necessarily that strange for a nomadic chapter, having Heresy era tech would definitely support the idea that they would have been in service for over 10 millennia. While at the squad level the chapter appears to adhere to the Codex Astartes, their organization certainly does not. For one, their names are way fucking cooler than 99% of other chapters. Their chapter masters are called fucking Shade Lords, baller as fuck. A captain is called a company master, slightly less baller. However, you can get a secondary title, and this rank is either a Reaper Prime or a Harvester Prime, and those are hella fucking baller. Their sergeants are called strike leaders, and their battle brothers are called void brothers. Which just saying void brother tickles me in some special places. Anyways, the Carcharodons have divided themselves into several smaller battle companies that are all meant to act as their own independent forces. They will all have a full detachment of scouts, a full Terminator spearhead to guard their company masters, and if I haven't already mentioned before, they fight in complete and utter silence, which is just fucking terrifying. At least scream at me while you butcher my loved ones. Doing that in silence makes me think you're a straight up psycho. The preferred battle tactic of the Shark Boys is to use their scout squads, land speeders, and bike units for a very thorough reconnaissance. Afterwards, they prefer to strike hard and fast using teleport strikes, drop pods, and thunderhawks to quickly close with and destroy the enemy. If they find the enemy position to be fortified, they simply fall back and strike at a different location that looks to be weak. When they do find the weak spot though, they go straight for the heart and mercilessly butcher anything and everything in their path. It's fun times, really. Since they always run from the authorities, it's hard to verify the next point. However, there is a great deal of evidence to suggest that the Carcharodons have abandoned the traditional squad markings. They appear to instead opt to use personalized or ritualistic markings. Another thing that has been noted about the Carcharodons is that while their chaplains and librarians perform the same functions as they would in a normal chapter, Their apothecaries and tech marines are rarely seen outside the fleets. Considering how vital these brothers are to the chapter and how rare it is for the Shark Boys to return to any of their planets, I can understand this decision. Also, fun facts about the librarians of the Shark Boys: they have two very distinct abilities. The first one is called From the Depths, where the Psyker mind fucks you and makes you shit your pants in fear. The other is called Rending Maw, where the apparition of Space Jaws appears and munches you like a Scooby snack. Now, what I'm about to say is 100% a theory that I'm basing solely off of how they behave in combat and their desire for secrecy. I also want to say I am by no means the first to suggest this idea, but what if the Shark Boys are a chimeric chapter? That would certainly explain why they stay so secluded in the depths of the void, because being around other Imperial chapters could legitimately endanger them. Now, if they are a chimeric chapter, that leaves the question of who their gene fathers could be. Personally, I think that with their use of hit and run tactics, their overall nomadic nature, and their use of some more personalized and ritualistic markings, it would lead me to believe that they're at least one half White Scars. Their almost need to close with the enemy in melee, mixed with their utter savagery in combat, not to mention that they call their assault squads Devourers, makes me think the other half could be World Eaters maybe. I know naming is such a surface level thing within 40k, but these motherfuckers also name their veteran Terminator squads the Red Brethren. And it is not uncommon for members of the Red Brethren to remain armed and armored at all times. I don't know, y'all let me know in the comments, are the Shark Boys a chimeric chapter or am I off my meds again? That's a trick question, I'm always off my meds. You can't let your intrusive thoughts win if all your thoughts are intrusive. Now, since they are a chapter that's always on the move, they don't necessarily recruit in the same fashion as other chapters. They initiate what is called the Red Tithe. This act is usually carried out by a Reaper Prime who will descend upon a planet and take a huge swath of the population. Many of these people will be turned into chapter forever workers and chapter serfs. The few of these captives that do meet the stringent standards to become an Astartes are immediately subject to the trials. Of those, an incredibly small percentage of them will actually survive the trials to be inducted into the 10th Company. While the Carcharodons' attrition rate for the trials is vastly higher than that of other chapters, most attribute this to their nomadic nature. Another practice of the Shark Boys is called the Grey Tithe. This is where the Harvester Prime will go out looking for lost Archaeotech. If any Archaeotech is located, they will immediately start looking for the nearest nerd that is sexually attracted to his computer so they can trade them for arms or whatever else the chapter may need at the time. Then they fuck back off into the deep space because being around other people is apparently painful to our shark furries, and honestly, I feel that one. Despite this incredibly antisocial behavior, the Carcharodons remain utterly loyal to the Emperor and the Imperium, and will savagely cut down all heretics and traitors in their path in a manner that can only be described as merciless. Now, with all that in mind, this brings into question their relationship with the Ashen Claws. TLDR of the Ashen Claws, they were a chapter of Raven Guard Space Marines that turned their backs on the Imperium and the traitors during the heresy. They attacked and ravaged the world of Nostromo before disappearing into deep space, where they made no attempt to contact either side for the duration of the heresy. This is a gross simplification of the chapter, but for now that's pretty much everything you need to know. Oh, actually, I forgot one tiny detail. Officially, they're labeled a Renegade chapter of Space Marines, which makes their relationship with the Carcharodons even more confusing to me. Now, the Carcharodons only go seeking the Ashen Claws when they are so low on Void Brothers that even a Red Tithe couldn't replenish their stock. And even when the Ashen Claws do hand over some of their recruits to the Carcharodons, their encounters are almost always hostile. The chapter master of the Ashen Claws always goes out of his way to be a complete and utter dick to the Shark Boys, and the Shark Boys go out of their way to be complete and utter dicks to the Ashen Claws. Sometimes these conflicts even devolve into outright bloodshed, yet their treaties remain and the Ashen Claws continue to supply the Shark Boys with reinforcement. While I understand that both chapters are considered as outcasts, only the Ashen Claws are labeled as renegades. And it's been shown and stated numerous times in the past that the Carcharodons have an intense hatred for all traitors and renegades. So as interesting as this little alliance is, it's just very confusing to my little brain. Is this just more 40k plot fuckery at work? Is this proof that the Carcharodons are actually a Raven Guard successor chapter, since we know that the Ashen Claws are a Raven Guard successor chapter? Perhaps it's old gene bonds that keep the Shark Boys from eating up the Ashen Claws? Like, seriously, if anyone knows this, I'm genuinely curious. But moving on to a few notable Carcharodons, we have the aptly named Forgotten One, a title given to the one that banished the Carcharodons into exile, most likely their Primarch. We have Shadelord Tiberius the Red Wake, who is the current Shadelord of the Carcharodons and 1000% deserves his own video. This dude named his power claws Hunger and Slake. What manner of psychopath is he? Company Master Baal Shar, Reaper Prime and Company Master of the Carcharodons' third company, whose Mark III power armor has markings that trace their lineage all the way back to the Unification Wars. But I guess we're just gonna drop that little tidbit and keep it pushing. Company Master Manfred was the Carcharodon that we briefly mentioned helped out during the Indomitus Crusade. And the Chief Librarian, whose name I cannot pronounce to save my fucking life, so we're just gonna call him by his title, the Pale Nomad. He is the oldest member of the chapter not imprisoned in a dreadnought. It is also said that he is only 3 generations removed from the original chapter being banished into the void. Gotta be honest with y'all, I really didn't know a whole lot about this chapter before making this video, and after making this video, I have just as many questions as I did before I made it, so yeah. But it was certainly a blast. There are many other heroes of this chapter and many deeds that I did not get to mention, but as the title of this video suggests, this has been the Carcharodons Poorly Explained. Thank you all so much for watching. I greatly appreciate your time. Up next, we have the absolute embodiment of insanity known as Conrad Kurz. Afterwards, we will be taking a look at the Alpha Legion, and I will try not to give myself a brain aneurysm doing that. As always, if you have any other suggestions for topics you'd like me to poorly explain, please leave them down in the comments. Again, thank you all so much. Have a wonderful morning, day, evening, night, whatever. Deuces. Find these pods help them cope with their new genetic augments. Can I speak a word? Dear Lord, please help me.